I'm kind of starting to realise now why Suella Braverman sort of like said, we need to get rid of the Human Rights Act, right? But I don't think we should. Look, that Human Rights Act is really, really important for the right to privacy, and no one's bringing anywhere near the type of legal cases or the amount of legal cases that need to be brought against the platforms. No one's bringing those cases. I wonder if there's some sort of anonymous group or suppression or something like that is like on the side of the platforms, Google or Zuckerberg, who's stopping us do it. And even when they go into Parliament, they've just called the platforms into Parliament about misinformation, but not about them breaking our rights or privileges or the election offences, right? Now, look, this Human Rights Act issue, the Human Rights Act definitely prevents certain things from being made or done, and that includes the right to life, definitely in this assisted dying bill. I don't know how they managed to get the abortion one through either. But there's an explicit article which says they definitely can't do that assisted dying bill, and they're just ignoring it, right? But the other main thing about that European Convention, right, is that apparently you can it makes it so they're allowed to challenge the law in the courts, right? Challenging the Assisted Dying Act now is like the government is not meant to be allowed to do it in the first place. That's why the courts can challenge acts at a later stage, but they're not. They should be challenged on it now, right? It's not to make that law. The whole thing around, like, in the criminal and civil procedure rules, the justices can do this action, which is like called incompatibility with convention, right? They obviously can't make and change the law themselves because they're not Parliament, but they can refer it, right? I don't know what actually happened with this case with the protesters with Shabana Mahmood and this protester who wanted to do judicial review, because when Shabana Mahmood made that schedule effect, that's making legislation. It's not an act of a public authority. You're only meant to be able to challenge an act of a public authority, right? But the Human Rights Act itself says justices can send legislation back for a review, right? But that's meant to be for Parliament to decide whether they should do something about it or not. If that's what they've done with Suella Braverman, right, obviously the court itself can't make or change the law. But what I've realised is that, you know, the court still sort of have a review of it, right? Now, but only on human rights issues, not on our constitutional rights issues, only on human rights issues. But they're meant to also have a leave of court for it as well, right? Which is similar to what they're meant to have for our constitutional rights. But if you think about it, if people raise this all the time, theoretically, right, how can you have it so potentially every single thing that the government do on a daily basis, if you wanted to, you could claim that it's against ECHR or it's violating your human rights in some way, and you could just be having cases all the time against what government are doing, and that would be severely intervening or criticising the government if you're not directly intervening in the proceedings, right? You know, you're not sending the police into proceedings. And the justices aren't changing the law. But if the justices potentially could have claimants every day of the week going in, and they could actually bring a human rights claim against every single thing the government does, like, you know, when Shabana Mahmood puts this into the law or changes that, or even if Lisa Nandy, you know, there's a scheduled monument thing, or, you know, for digital culture, media and sport, or supposedly every single bit of legislation that they're putting through. But it's meant to be illegal prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters cognizable, decidable in Parliament, right? But they said it's not a prosecution, but it's still an action, right? A suit. I think that in 1998, this is another one of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown's creations before they did the Constitutional Reform Act, right? How can it be? How can you have privileges? How can it be privileged if they're actually, if justices and courts are deciding what legislation's lawful or not? Now, we should be doing that with the Human Rights Act on assisted dying, because it says that the government can't do it. So someone needs to do something about it if the government aren't going to acknowledge what they're doing is illegal, right? But by saying that the courts can judge or decide, it's intervening in Parliament. I mean, even this questionable about, the misconduct charges, right? But you're meant to be have impeachments in Parliament. You're meant to have impeachments in Parliament because it's meant to be heard in Parliament, and the House of Lords can make orders to keep Parliament under control. The Supreme Court's only meant to be appeal-like jurisdiction, right? Now, when we are using Parliament and we're using and doing privileges, right, and we've got proceedings and the courts aren't meant to intervene in it, right, this is when you end up with all these Extinction Rebellion cases. But how can the courts really truly believe in, respect and uphold the privileges of Parliament when they get to decide that laws even not compatible now, and they can send it back to Parliament for scrutiny? So they've got this feeling or attitude that, it's like the courts don't really think or believe there is a privilege of Parliament anymore, because they can literally scrutinise absolutely everything the government's doing if they wanted to all day, if everyone's just bringing human rights violations, right? And even, I think the courts truly believe that Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, that there is no privilege, because like everything they do, they can scrutinise it as if it's a human right violation or not. But the proceedings aren't going to be intervened in, right? The proceedings, they can say, this is, if this law's not right, but they can't change the law, and they're not going to be able to intervene in the proceedings of Parliament, right? Which is what they're doing with the promoting the public bills, right, and promoting the public business is a proceeding of Parliament, right? So the courts aren't meant to intervene in it. But how can they respect or uphold it if they think that everything's open for human rights scrutiny? Like, what Extinction Rebellion did, what was it, against people's human rights and that? But that they would only send the recommendation back for it. They couldn't actually make an order against Extinction Rebellion themselves or convict or prosecute them, right? So there's something definitely, there's something here. I think it's the gradual dismantling of Parliament is the Human Rights Act. I don't think they ever intended to uphold those human rights. They've definitely... the Americans have come in full force with all the platforms. Our privacy is already illegally invaded. We're under an illegal information invasion from the Americans at the moment, and the MPs are all aboard with it. They love it because they're like, that's the future model for, Oracle and Planet Earth and Larry Ellison. And then they're like, we want to use this social media for ourselves, and we're just going to completely ignore election regulatory law for elections. Now they've got all these Solar Braverman and Sarah Poaching Appreciation Societies, and now, like I said in the other video, that 1949 Act, the 1948 and 1949 Representation of the People Act, Graham Moore doesn't like that. Prime Minister, was he called Attlee or something like that? I think he was a Liberal Democrat, I'm not sure, but he doesn't like him. He thinks that he was a Fabian, and he was part of the Tony Blair, crew, the Fabians. But that law was important and needed. Look, it prevented people from, if a political party had a radio advert, it would just play on the radio and then it's gone. Poof, into the ether, right? They paid for it to be heard by people and then it's gone, right? And same with on TV. And they were licensed and regulated for those adverts and to even cover the election. Now, if people had VHS recorder at home and recorded it, right, just kept it for themselves, that's fair use. And even if you record the radio advert, right, that's fair use, right? But you're not supposed to record the radio advert, right, and then, make copies of it and then hand them out to everyone on a cassette, right, or sell them, either or with the VHS, right? But that's effectively what people are doing now, right? Click save and then re-upload. You're publishing it, making it available to a section of the public or public at large to affect elections, right? The political party and the candidates are the ones who have got spending to be used to affect the public for elections, right? And you're not supposed to be able to copy their material. Look, that you're not supposed to be able to, if they're standing for election, right, they're in a competition, and the competition's regulated and run by the government in an election process, right? It's not run by loose women. It's not an ITV competition. It's not like Simon Cowell, or I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or a game show. They're their own contests, right? And what they're doing is the TV are wanting to get involved in the competition, right? They're meant to be covering the competition. They're meant to be giving coverage of it while it's going on, right? But they're not meant to be promoting either of the parties who are in it other than essential, necessary procedure. This is why Jeremy Vine is, the whole thing's turned into entertainment wrongly. Now, that law that Attlee made, I think it was called Attlee, I'm pretty sure, in 1949 Representation of the People Act. It was in the 1948 one as well, exactly the same, but it carried over into the other acts, right? You're not meant to be you're not meant to be helping the candidates. No one's supposed to be helping them. No one, right? Or else there's no point in it being regulated. There aren't any point in the regulations. They're meaningless, right? If anyone can print something and help them, then why have the printer information on it and be required to say who's printed it, right? And who authorised it? There's no point in being regulated at all. Someone else could have pirated them, right? This is the thing. The point in regulations, right, is completely and totally meaningless now. And now that they're doing all these really crazy, wacky parodies, which I've even been laughing at some of them are funny. I shouldn't be sharing them, but they're funny, right? And I think it's good riddance, to be honest. Look, right, Keir Starmer can't call this out now without... Keir Starmer, right, he's a terrible Prime Minister. He's rubbish at law. I don't know how he ended up leading the CPS. It's got to be like no one else wants to do it. It's got to be like the worst job in the world that no one else wants to do, right? So we'll fight Keir Starmer to do it. He's not a man of integrity at all. He's always talking about respect, honour. He hasn't got none, right? Starmer, if he puts his hand up, right, and says, call it out, right, then he's doomed. Because if he calls it out now in the 1949 Representation of the People Act, if he says, the candidates aren't meant to be displayed to the public, right, when it's during election time, or even if it could be proved to affect their popularity or help them, right? All these parodies are going to be continuing, there's elections on now, right? When Keir Starmer's standing again, if he ever stood again, right, and they've got all these parodies of him at the same time, right, and he loses, he gets one vote or no votes, right, he will be complaining then that they're doing all these parodies of him, right, through the election period that they're displaying him, right, and it's affecting his popularity. If he calls it out, then he's got to call the whole thing out, going all the way back to 1949. 1948, right? He's got to call out Spitting Image, like with Thatcher. I've looked at the statistics and her votes did go up after Spitting Image, actually. I think she got 1,000 votes extra or something in her constituency, right? Than she got previously. He'll have to call the whole thing out, the whole media and television thing, and he's not going to do that because the Labour Party have been complicit in it, and his own party will be liable. So what he's doing now is I'm a fighter, we're going to fight this, we're going to carry on, right? He's not going to do the lawful thing, he's not going to do the honest thing, and he's not going to call it out. What he's going to do is ignore it, and pretend that social media is totally legal, that, you know, the regulations, that there's a point in them, right? And I don't know how the fuck, right, you know, everyone copying the Reform UK logo and uploading it is not copyright. Yeah, he's going to say, oh, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You know, the regulations are just there so we can tally up, you know, how much money we're spending, keep track of it, right? It's not actually to have a regulatory around it, you know, to prevent or restrict any other people from doing certain things. It's purely for our little tally thing so we can keep track of what we're spending, right? You know, rubbish. If Starmer's I don't know how much longer Keir Starmer can stay in government for without the country going into complete utter chaos, because they're hiding the grievances. There were tens of thousands of petitions every session in the 1800s. And then Tony Blair's like, hey, you know, the petition numbers are really low now, like, you know, like 50 to 100 or 200 every session or less, all through the 80s and 90s, right? And no one was doing petitioning hardly. And even now, no one's doing private bills, which I'm very surprised of, because political parties don't need to do them, because they're doing loads of handshakes instead with the companies and letting them do what they want in 5G and all these things like railways and McDonald's, and they're all in. They love it. Tony Blair's like, hey, like, you know, I'll dress up as Ronald McDonald, you know. I mean, you don't need to oppose it. I mean, you know, like, I'll even, like Donald Trump, you know, in McDonald's, like, he's actually in McDonald's doing an advert for them for his presidential run. It's not like, you know, well, actually, I want to oppose this McDonald's, so I'll have to oppose the president, you know, and do a private bill to stop McDonald's expanding, because they're in on it. It's like you might as well have, for the local councillors, when the local councillors, right, you know, getting elected for the local council, like, you know, Askert Cleese or Colchester, right, you might as well have, like, Councillor King from Colchester Council in McDonald's handing burgers out, because, like, they could be a sponsor. But then, like, you know, we don't need to do any private bills to oppose McDonald's and stop them doing restaurants, because, like, the council love the fucking burgers, right? They're like sponsored fucking by them, right? They've got long-term contracts with fucking burger companies, so, you know, why would they need to be doing any private bills for or against anything to Parliament? They're fully sponsored and endorsed by it all. It's like, you might as well have, you know, Councillor King from Colchester Council coming in with the Nike fucking trainers on, like, you know, like he's some sort of hip-hop rapper sponsored, like, you know. In fact, I'm quite surprised why the Council of the Mayor's even got, like, the gold mayor medallion round his neck for the King or for the government, HM government. I'm quite surprised now that when the mayor comes into the council, like, he's not got the Nike sneakers on and a tracksuit, and he's, like, sponsored by Nike, and he's like, hey, let's get some 5G towers up, right? You know, and he's not got, like, a cricket shirt on, like, with fucking 5G or EE on it or whatever, like, fully sponsored, like, you know, like, with his threads on, yo, G. It's like the councillors are sponsored by 5G, yo. It's like, you know, well, we want to stop 5G. Well, actually, you know, we could do a bill to Parliament, private bill to stop them doing it here, right? Or public, for the whole public, like against 50-minute cities. Oh, yo, you don't want to do that. You just want to get a judicial review. You know, it's 20k, you know, 20G, 5G, KG. Where's the hey, we'll get a parliamentary agent, right? Oh, well, there's only about 6 of them fucking left, right? You know, it's like you might as well now. What's the, you know, are these councillors like cricket players, like, or fucking soccer players like Beckham? It's like, they might as well come into the council with a fucking sponsorship shirt on, you know? Like they're all fucking sponsored by McDonald's or something, the councillors. In fact, is the council sponsored by McDonald's? When they get the money pot for these projects, is it coming from the government or is it coming from McDonald's, right? You know, this is a question. There's something very wrong happening, right? So, you know, but anyway, these political parodies now, they're really getting quite explosive and serious and widespread now, and I can't see how Keir Starmer, I mean, he's never going to get elected again into government, that's for sure. Keir Starmer's never going to be an MP again, ever, right? I don't think that Rees-Mogg is going to be, probably, and Nigel Farage, they're already turned on Nigel Farage now as well, right? So, I mean, you know, they're not going to get elected again. And I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be till they do any like Sarah Puchin or Suella Braverman parodies as well. You know, they could quite easily start doing Suella Braverman and, you know, Sarah Puchin parodies, and they might not get elected again. You know, or they're even doing they're doing Lee Anderson now as well. I think we're getting towards the end of MPs. Because if the figures go down any lower, like they have done in some of those, like, you know, that Merton election, like, you know, less than 30% or 28, 29%, whatever, you're not even going to get people turning out to vote, right? And you know, that means people are going to start getting voted in on, you know, hundreds, like the Monster Raven Looney Party could potentially end up with starting to get councillors and MPs into government, right? And that's all going to be like, influence on elections. Keir Starmer is finished now because he can't call out that the election commission are absolutely pointless. The electoral commission are not fit for purpose. They're pointless, right? It's you know, Starmer's done for now. All that he's doing is how long he can stay in government and do vindictive things, like, you know, like appointing all these czars and doing all these respect orders, and God knows what he's doing. But he's managing. He's a prime minister and he's getting to twiddle with the controls of the government and the dashboard, right? But, I mean, I don't even know how is it that they're not bringing in all these... don't you think it's mysterious, right? Where are all these judicial reviews against Keir Starmer? Where are all these Human Rights Act violations against Keir Starmer in the courts, right? You'd have thought that, you know, if they brought that case against, you know... Shabana Mahmood, right? You'd have thought they'd been bringing laws against Keir Starmer for what he's doing, right? You know... So I'm quite surprised there aren't loads and loads of High Court cases for that. But, you know, then they'll be complaining that the Ombudsman can act against MPs or things that have been done in parliamentary processes, and that should be that putting something into Schedule 2, which Shabana Mahmood did. So I don't know how they've managed to get that judicial review in the courts when the Ombudsman wouldn't be able to act on it. If I'd have put that through to the Ombudsman, they'd have said, oh, we can't do it, because, like, you know, it was she's Secretary of State as making legislation, right? They wouldn't have done you know, and isn't it meant to be the Act that's sent back itself, right? And the government, the court don't actually change the law, right? So, you know, it was only, I think it was only an opinion, you know, and they're definitely not wanting to do anything about it on the Assisted Dying Act that they're putting through being unlawful, even though there's multiple complaints. All this stuff's meant to be done through impeachment in Parliament. I don't know why they did this, why they got into this Human Rights Act thing, because it's making courts meddle in legislating and Parliament when we've already got a model for that. Why didn't we just keep using the impeachment model, or using the you know, petitions in Parliament to hold MPs to account? In Parliament, by petition, you know, the Sun did it in the newspaper for Lord Hanningfield and plastered it everywhere to get the police to act. So what's the difference in plastering it on the e-petitions website, right? You know, you know, and I wouldn't mind that Human Rights Act. We desperately need to use that privacy clause, desperately, because they shouldn't be being allowed to even have these platforms and technology. It shouldn't even be allowed to be made, let alone force us to consent, submit, accept. And as they get monopolies and there's no other choice or option available that doesn't have it, they're forcing us all into a new surveillance culture by lack of option, by control of market. And that's really what that Privacy Act is meant to be about. Larry Ellison knows all about this, but the Americans aren't even... It's not the EU, it's not even Europe, you know. They've stormed in and violated it all when people hadn't really sussed it out and known what was going on, and it's fucked now. It's too late. They know all the shit about us. They've got all the data. It's in their brain. The only way you can get it out is like, you know, 007 movie fucking Blofeld style when he gets the fucking gold drill in the side of his head. I mean, and what the Americans going to do, you know, get Larry Ellison on a fucking, strapping him into a chair and get a gold drill bit in the side of his temple so he can drill all the memories out of the head of the information that he illegally took from us, like against his fucking privacy seriously, right? Like I'm fucking Blofeld, right? Might as well have a fucking lethal injection, you know? This is where we are with the Americans, right? They've got information that they were never allowed to have and that they didn't have a right to know, right? And, you know, phones listening in when you're in the doctors and all this type of stuff. But it's all, the government are all sponsored. You know, you might as well have, like, you know, MPs walking into Parliament, like, with a fucking, like, Jimmy Savile, right? With the jingle, jewellery, right? You might as well, right, have, all these MPs, right, in Parliament with, like, a fucking tracky suit bottom on, you know, like, even the speaker, you know, like even Lindsay Hoyle, you know, he likes his betting shop gambling, you know, boxing. He might as well be all sponsored up, you know, Oracle, Larry Ellison. You might as well even have Facebook logo, you know, might as well have a Facebook t-shirt, you know, and, you know, or an X platform t-shirt, all sponsored up, right? Oh, the Parliament's sponsored by X, right? You know, because they might as well be sponsored by X because they are, because they're advertising those platforms on their MP contact pages. They're not taking them down. They've got no intention of taking them down at all or taking them off. They've got all the electoral material on there. You might as well play an X advert when you ring up. When you ring up, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, he might as well say, hey, why don't you join the X platform? You know, it's a dynamic new platform, you know, and, you know, no sponsorship videos playing on here, right? You know, YouTube, you know, subscribe to YouTube, you know. They might as well you might as well play fucking cornflakes adverts when you ring up the MPs now. They're fucked, right, with this social media thing. And then you've got this, they're in front of the committee now. Now it's serious. Like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's up in front of the Senate, right, you know. Now we've got all the platform representatives, you know, for misinformation up in front of Parliament, you know. We've got them up in front of these MPs who are voting on these committees. It's dead serious now. Like, you know, well, you might as well have them up in front of the Michael Westwood debate in front of, you know, two fat ladies. I've got something really important to say now, reading off my bit of paper. There's been a lot of foreign intervention in these petitions, right? Oh, yeah, like, you know, Sadiq Khan's entire fucking, you know, London Manifesto isn't from, you know, his foreign club, right? You know, there's been a lot of foreign intervention in here. And then they made all the e-petitions emails opaque, so you can't even see who signed it. I'm going to ring my MP up and tell them that, you know, look, I've got 20 signatures from our area, but I can't prove that to you because it doesn't say that on the email. It doesn't say who signed it, right? I can't confirm that, right? They're doing legal processes where you don't even know what's going on now, right? Some things happened to this country, and I think it's like what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, like, it's dyslexia or some, like, they don't know what they're doing. They sound serious. They sound important. Some of them are professionals. Some of them have got jobs, but they can't. There's an attribute missing. There's severe jigsaw puzzle pieces missing. These people cannot understand or refusing to understand that what Article 2 of the Right to Life means in the Human Rights Act, that they can't do the Human Rights Act. If they're either defiant, they're trying to prove a case against it when there's no case to be proven. He says you can't fucking do it, right? What is Tony Vaughan KC doing? You know, they're not. They're just making new laws, and they don't even know how the existing law applies properly, and they can't interpret it, or they don't care. None of the new laws are coherent. They're not compatible. They're contradictory to each other, and they've made an absolute massacre and mess of the country. And they're still, like, championing on, pretending that it's all legit, above board and serious, and we should take it seriously, right? They won't do any actions in Parliament. We can't use Parliament for a judicial function. You sent claims in, like, my channel put up, you know, we are doing processes. Like, when you're running a magistrate's court, right, people are using it. they're turning up. They're asking for, they're doing like, they're having to call for witnesses. They're having to send letters out. People are doing proceedings. They might have to send the police to get some more evidence. They've got to function. They might have to go back and get more fingerprints. It's an operating, functioning body, right? When we do cases to Parliament, we've got proceedings. We're promoting public business to get signatures. But our signatures mean nothing. Like in a Michael Westwood, you get 3 million of them, and what happens? Nothing. You don't get a general election. You just get 2 fat ladies. 66, like bingo, right? On video. Coming out with nothing. Literally. Coming out with... It's worse than loose women. And... They aren't they're not facilitating our function because they actually think that it's meaningless. When you get all those signatures, they're not going to do anything anyway. They won't even let you run certain things that you definitely can do. And even you're sending documents in showing that it can be done. And then they've got these people, on this team, just sat there pressing the reject button all day when you're sending evidence and, well, why do you reject that? You can do it there, it says it. I mean, they're not even reading it off the sheet of paper as much as they're not reading that Article 2. Everything that, all these laws like abuse of process, misconduct in public office, perversion of the course of justice, they're doing all these things now, and they're just managing to get away with ignoring it, and no one's even calling them out on it, hardly really that much anyway. They're not even managing to uphold Parliament's authority. They're getting Shabana Mahmood when she was actually putting something into legislation, something that Ombudsman wouldn't have been able to act in, right? And it's just carrying on now. We've ended. I think diversity and inclusion has really caved in what England and Britain was or is, and this is what Rupert Lowe is sort of talking about. And there's been school teachers on there, like when you go to the school, canteen, none of the teachers want to debate or discuss or argue or do any critical thinking. Then they just kind of want to be like TV presenter mentality, There's no intellectual integrity or self-reflection or critique or questioning. They're not letting you... It says that you can use e-petitions to criticise and disagree with the government. They're definitely not letting you do that. We're being taken over by morons, I think. And they're the only ones who are standing up for the position. They're getting in it. They're definitely not professional enough to do it properly. They might try and put on a good front that they are, but they're not. And the country's suffering, and then all in the meantime, all these channels now aren't actually focusing on the true real problems. They're ignoring them, and we've got this whole thing about popularity and fame weaved in with it all. And then the TV, the entertainment shows are just like, on with the show must go on. And then they're just like spinning around on the carousel on the game show, answering the questions. And are those questions, are they even right about those? Is that misleading? Trying to make out the country's intelligent and that they know information, they know things, but they don't know anything. Because you've got all these game shows asking questions to see how smart and clever people are, but no one's stopped or called out the government for this assisted dying on Article 2. No one's called them out for the election piracy. No one's called them out for the MPs, the contact pages. No one's called them out for anything that they're doing wrong. It's like questions for the sake of questions. I think, whatever England... had is I think like we're gonna. It's like a devolution. The government are always talking about devolution, but there's these key people who like Larry Ellison or whatever who are like going to end up fucking. It's a new. It's like It's definitely like the Roman Empire, but it's like Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg are taking over planet Earth. The governments are in on it. They like it. They've got the spawn. You know, it's like, hey, like I like Mark Zuckerberg. He's taking over planet Earth with Facebook. Can I have a Facebook tracksuit, Mark? Like, you know, I'll wear it when I'm in Parliament, right? You know, and like it's on my MP contact page. Like, you know, Jeremy Corbyn sponsored by X and Facebook. Hey, yo, cool, right? You know, so like these MPs are all fucking sponsored up. Well, no, but now we've got these platforms in front of us in a very serious committee. Like, oh, we've got to stop misinformation being spread. Hello? Isn't it the Parliament committees that have been spreading the most misinformation, like Privileges Committee? Isn't it like, you know, the e-petitions who are putting the most propaganda out? So, no, you can't do this, you can't have that. But no, actually, we can't have any honours petitions. Well, why was it the most popular subject then, 2010, between 2006 and 2010, right? Why was honours the most popular subject? So now we can't have any honours petitions. What about, oh, look what I found on the website. Norman Betterson, honours, like, you know, that ran. Oh, we can't have that. But it's there, right? I mean, there's this guy. One of them's called Mike, one of these, you know, e-petitions team. They're compulsive lying. They can't tell the truth, or they are thick, right? They're just being gits, like Gareth Price, a little git. He's a little git, right? He's a lying git. He doesn't actually know what he's doing. It's actually like getting a train driver to fly a plane, or he knows a bit about it, but not enough. And they're taking control. I don't know how they're managing to pull this off, right? And they're getting in the offices, they're locking the doors, they've got the security cards, they're getting in the building, like reject, right? But then they're going into Parliament like this terrible woman, this terrible Welsh woman, you know, ex-House of Lords member, Morgan or whatever, right? She gets voted in because she's a previous House of Lords member, right? They reject. They're going in there. They're using all these resources, facility, money, right? And making out, oh, we're doing governance. But they are blatant liars. And I don't know how, and then I don't even know how they're managing to go out in public and make videos and do interviews still, by the way these parodies are going. If these parodies, right, expand anymore, right, I just can't see you. I mean, these people are a parody, right? These people are a joke, parody themselves. Like Starmer, you don't need to make a parody of Starmer that's a comedy, because he is a comedy show. Starmer is a joke. He is a presentment. He's the exhibit of, hey, look, here's institutional corruption. Here's misconduct in public office. It's like he's the example. He is the exhibit. He is the exhibit of evidence on display. Hey, look, here's institutional corruption. It's worst. It's most extensive. Keir Starmer, he's on a daily basis, the man is an exemplification of misconduct. And look at Shabana Mahmood. She can't even defend herself for the privileges. You know, I mean, if there isn't any parliamentary privilege anymore, then, you know, look, you might as well just have the court. If every single person now goes into court, they could just like have cases against every single thing that Keir Starmer and the government are doing, which is what's the point of having parliamentary privilege? They can just say every single thing they're doing is against the Human Rights Act 1998 and is against the convention right. And then that's surely going to disrupt and intervene in parliamentary's business. If everyone in this country now filled a court form in, right, and said, oh, chose something that they think that's in contravention of human rights, and there was a case for it, wouldn't that that frequency of cases be enough to say, well, that's a disruption or intervention in parliamentary business, but that's a breach of privilege because the courts aren't meant to be intervening or trifling with parliamentary business. But hey presto, we can have like an array, an assault, a battery of hundreds of thousands of justices saying that this and that, what the government are doing is wrong or they can't do it. Surely there's something actually wrong with the Human Rights Act, and I actually think it's an important act when it comes to that privacy now, but I think it's too late. It's too late. I mean, it should have kicked in before, and it should have prevented all this from happening, but it's gone. Like, they've got our information. It's like rape. We've been raped, It's like the deed's done, right? It's like, they've raped us, they've taken all this information, they've got it. It's fucking gone now, right? And you're not going to get it back unless you get, Larry Ellison in the Blofeld chair and get a fucking steel drilling in the side of it to drill it out of his fucking memory in his mind, because he's fucking perved it. He looked at it, he saw it, he knows it, right? He's a pervert, he's a voyeur, they're spies, right? There's nothing you can do about it, in fact, that James Bond film was probably knew about it. That's probably why they did that, right? To make a point out of it, right? In the movie, right? So, we're done. It's where they've downgraded the country. They've downgraded the whole country's intelligence, and now they've only got elite people, tech people, who are going to be, like Larry Ellison and fucking who are going to be in control now of the fucking tech of the country, Department of Innovation and Technology. I don't know how they can have a Department of Innovation and Technology, because it seems like they can make a computer screen light up. They can have a student come in and like make a mobile phone screen light up, but we can't light up we can't light up the brains of these MPs when they're voting on assisted dying, when like one paragraph of writing, you can't have law that takes life unless it is through criminal proceedings. That is it. There's no proportionality, there's no reasonable response, there's no weighing it up, right? It says you can't fucking do it, right? But, they're denying reality. They're in a fantasy world. They're living in a delusion, and they're getting away with it, and they're turning up in government and, sitting in a chair and calling in people from America. Hey, we're running a professional business. It's all, I mean, they're going along with it, but how are they blatantly ignoring that? It's like a weird virtual reality where you can just blank out anything that you want to disregard or not apply, but yet then you end up getting people on planes flying in the air all the way from America to come in front of a committee, and it's very serious and important. Yeah, all those people in that committee have got illegal fucking election adverts on their own websites. They're complicit in their voters breaking the law. These platforms have taken down all our political material. They're not even talking about that in the meeting. All they're bothered about is misinformation, when the e-petitions committee is the biggest propaganda machine, misinformation and propaganda machine in the history of England. The e-petition rejections is the biggest lie and propaganda machine that has ever existed on planet Earth, and it's a really important it's meant to be the way that we can actually stop the government from doing things that it's doing and intervene in it, and make the government act. And we're being blocked and lied to. It couldn't be worse at the moment. We couldn't be in a worse situation. And then we've got all the justices and the courts completely, totally, blatantly disregarding our privileges when we're engaging in the promotion of that bills and procedure in order to try and get the government to act. When we're being blocked from it, the courts are upholding that jurisdiction. I'm sure that Tony Blair was an anarchist and Gordon Brown was just shit, right? Tony Blair was an anarchist, and then he was followed by Gordon Brown, who was crap, right? He's shit at fucking politics. No one else wants the job. These people are con men, and they can even con themselves. They convince themselves, right? And then the TV cameras, to even go on a TV program and sit in front of the fucking news, right, and pretend that it's legit what you're doing, right? They've either got to be dim and thick, but this is the thing. People are just jumping in front of the game shows now. Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, the mentality of it is just like, you know, if you've got the balls to go on a TV game show and sit in a stupid carousel and wave your arms around and answer some fucking questions for like £5,000, right, in front of the whole nation, right? If you are thick as if you are fucking dumb enough to do that and think that it's cool, right, then you can take over planet Earth, because, you know, these people have got the fucking balls, right? They've got the fucking balls, right? They go up, fill a form in, go for an election, right? Apparently they've done it all by the rules. Yeah, right, bollocks. Have they fuckers like done it by the rules, right? You know? And then they just stand in front of a TV camera and bullshit the fucking nation. Stand in front of a TV camera and talk bullshit and convince a whole country that, you know, it's legit, like fucking assisted dying, and that they can do it, when, you know, these are like the word charlatan, con men. You know, all these words, you know, they exist in the dictionary and they mean something. You know, it's not like that word doesn't exist. Like, yo, can you find me a charlatan, right? Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Keir Starmer, the charlatans. These are the charlatans. And, you know, the worst thing is that it's well known that you can go into a town centre with a microphone and ask like 50 people, what do you think to politicians? And you know that the answer they say is, they're all corrupt, right? Everyone says that. They're all corrupt, right? Which is why no one votes for them, but someone does, because they can manage to get in government, but not a majority. And now you got like less than 29% fucking turnout, right? So, you know, everyone does think they're charlatans. How are they not under... How is it that they're not under arrest? How, you know, I mean, how is it that these people aren't under arrest, that they can even get out of bed on a morning? I mean, Nicola Sturgeon did get arrested, you know? Nicola Sturgeon and her husband got fucking arrested. They got arrested and investigated for fiddling money, right? So, at least the Scottish police are not that completely and totally, utterly pointless and meaningless. They've actually taken some kind of action for fraud, but, you know... is it meant to be impeachment? I don't know, you know. Are the police intervening in parliamentary processes? I wish the police would act for, you know, the requirement of, you know, the requirement for the Green Party to have all the information on their placards and so. The 14 days is gone now anyway. I think 14 days has gone since that got Denton by-election, so I mean that's it now. 14 days is up from that. I don't know if the police can act or not. You know, they're definitely not going to do anything about the online piracy because it's too extensive for them to be able to really do anything about it. And if they did, they'd have to... That's what the Electoral Commission is supposed to have powers for, to contact the platforms and issue takedown notices, right? They're meant to be the ones with the power and authority to do it, but they're not acting. And they don't even know what the law is, because when you ask them, you know, can you send me all the legislation that you've got, which is in effect for elections, it's meant to be on the wall, or else how can they enforce it anyway? They don't respond, they don't send you it, you know?